Mixing with Mike plugin of the week is the Overloud TapeDesk. This is kind of an interesting concept and something that actually I've been thinking about more recently, for a while, which is that, in putting together kind of an analog setup, and I spend a lot of time doing these types of things, it's easy to kind of forget the whole first stage of the recording process as opposed to just the mixing process. So even if we set up like a whole analog tape system and we set up preamps for the line amps coming in and we kind of capture that end of it, the element that's always missing is the mic preamp on the other side. So in theory, what you would have in the recording phase would be a whole mic preamp, possibly some EQ and compression processing all the way to the tape. It would exist on the tape for a while, which would actually, give some degradation over time, especially the more that you use the tape. And then you would play it back into a console, and then you'd get the line amps of the console coming in, and then have the whole sound of the console factored in. And this is, to some degree, what we have here with the TapeDesk plugin. So what we have here is, if I just kind of do a quick overview of the graphic interface, we just have the menu bar up at the top here where you can load presets, do A/B comparisons, all of that sort of stuff. There's some preferences. You can access the manual, all of those sorts of things. So you get some different things here. You can set a standard for the metering and everything that you bring in. And then essentially what you have is a tape machine. There's not a lot of options in terms of, other than the metering. You have 30, 15, and 7.5. You don't have different tape formulations or anything like that. You have a normal, or what's called a nominal bias, or an over bias, which is +3. So I assume the nominal bias is a 185 nanoweber per meter, which was the old standard operating level. You have a record level, which allows you to drive saturation in, and you can have it linked with the playback level, so that helps to drive a bit more grit or distortion in there, a little more saturation from the tape. You can power this down independently, so you can actually use just the console elements, or actually use the tape altogether, or take any of these elements out along the way. So what we have here is the recording phase. So if we have a mic preamp, we'll have that selected. Again, we could select VU or peak metering. Up here, we have a gain control, which starts at 0. I sort of cranked it up a little bit. So we can select the mic preamp or out. We have a tolerances control, and this is just basically factoring in that not all the components are consistent or the same. And so this just allows for some tolerances in terms of the way that the components will act with different material being fed into it. And then on the output, we can turn this whole section off, so we could use just the tape without all of this, right? So we have all of those options. And then we have 3 consoles. We have an SSL 4000 series console. I'm assuming that it's an E-series console, but not totally sure about that, because the 4000 was also a 4000G series console, which came in the late 80s. The N80 is probably a Neve, 80 series Neve from the 1970s. T88 is would appear to be like an 88RS console, which is a more modern Neve console. So each of them has kind of a distinctive sound. And so what you end up with here, and what I'm going to demonstrate here, is I have all of these sort of grouped together for a whole song, right? So in other words, there's no grouping within the plugin itself, but essentially what I have set up is a track group within Pro Tools that's tying all of the settings together between all of them. So I'm switching all of them. This way we can kind of preview exactly what goes on within the plugin itself. So let's just start by going through some of the different console types. I'll take the tape out, and then let's kind of get a sense of what that's all about. I'm driving it a little bit just to get a little bit more level in, because I think my levels are probably calibrated a little bit lower than what the standard is, and so I'm just doing this for vibe and sound. So this is with the mic pre in and the tolerances, and we'll A/B a little bit of that. All right, so here we go.
Tell my friends, 'cause I don't want them codependent. I will quit it, never fix it. I will quit it, never fix it. Jesus' yeast gave me a priest infection. He wouldn't give me bread. I'm on funeral reception. He asked if I was christened. I said.
So what you get with each of these is sort of a slightly different characteristic. You get a bit more mid-range presence here with the SSL console, which is true to the original. The Neve, you get a richer low end and a bit more air up on the top, nice sizzle up on the top, which is good. And the 88RS is probably a bit more balanced overall. It's kind of a combination of the SSL and the Neve to me, where there's a richness and a warmth, but also kind of a mid-range character, not quite as gritty, or not nearly as gritty as the SSL 4000. But within this character, though, and within any of these, sometimes just a combination of this along with the tape setting helps to kind of give you a little bit more of what you want. So let's just switch the tape in here for a second. So for example, if I have this, just selecting the tape speed here, 30 inches will give me much more top end frequency, like a much more open high frequency response. I don't know exactly what tape machine this is, like on a Studer tape machine at 30 inches per second, the top end goes up to like, 65 kilohertz. So that's, like obviously way above, but depending upon the tape machine, some tape machines with a wider head gap will give you a lesser frequency response. And it sounds like that's what this is. So if we wanted like something really like open on the air and very airy sounding, 30 inches would be the way to go with a more or less, flatter low frequency response. Then you get a little low frequency bump here, and the high frequency response kind of cuts in a little bit. And 7.5, you get a warmer sound on the top end, and then an extended low frequency range. So basically what you're doing is you're, lower, extending the low end or extending the high end, and basically you're kind of going through those different options there. The normal and the overbias will just be more of a saturation type of thing. So with an overbias, you're just hitting the tape 3 dB higher, so that just makes it that way. And of course, it automatically calibrates the output to be 3 dB lower, so that you get the same looking level, although you get more tape saturation. So let's just go through a couple of options, and I want to show you a couple things here. So let's start with 30 inches per second in the Neve. I'll switch between the different options here.
Codependent. I will quit it, never fix it. I will quit it, never fix it.
So with this setting, I kind of like the 7.5. It seems to match the extended top end that we're getting from the Neve and low end, and kind of seems to fill out the mid range a little bit better with the Neve, and that might be a good combination for that. But let's switch over now to the B side and do a comparison. So let's say, for example, I selected the 4000 console, which has more mid-range presence. I might want to go the opposite to get the same kind of effect.
Codependent. I will quit it, never fix it. I will quit it, never fix it. Jesus' yeast
So you can see here how you see that the peak levels there. So I'm showing peak instead of VU. That's kind of part of what you're seeing there. But you can hear the distinct difference, in the sound. I still prefer the Neve in this case. Has a bit more character, like a bit more openness. But you see how using different combinations and with different kinds of music, you might find that one works better. So let's just try the T88, and let's just see if the 88RS, what that sounds best with.
I died again. Please don't tell my friends, 'cause I don't want them to cry. No, not I. It's hard to witness with an intimate distance of friendship turned toxic, codependent. I will quit it, never fix it. I will quit it, never fix it. Jesus' yeast gave me a priest infection. He wouldn't give me bread. I'm on funeral reception. He asked if I was christened. I said yes, and did I mention?
So you could hear how that, works, bringing in the overbias to get a little bit more tape saturation. I could also affect this with the record level.
I died again. Please don't tell my friends, 'cause I don't.
So you could hear how like just bringing that in is, again, it's doing it on all of the tracks at the same time, but you could hear how it can bring like an interesting tonal character just like to the snare drum alone. So you could selectively kind of drive it a bit more on tracks like that. This is kind of an interesting effect too here with the wow and flutter. Just, and that may find a place like in as a special effect kind of thing, which is kind of cool. I really dig this. This is kind of fun. It's pretty simple layout. Just the fact that you have some, controls between the different elements here, switching between the different preamp console setups, having the whole tape path that's right in between, just as you would. It sounds great. I just found, I can pretty much with any kind of music or any instrument basically dial in some kind of tonal setting that seems to just work really well. And yeah, it's a good one. I stumbled across this one recently and went to check it out, and was very impressed with it. So I know it's been out for a little bit. It's not a brand new plugin from Overloud, but it's a very good one. So give credit where credit is due. All right, there you have it. The plugin of the week, Overloud TapeDesk.